Get you some new numbers now from the first in the nation primary state. Numbers that could spell trouble for Hillary Clinton's campaign. A CNN WMUR poll finds Senator Bernie Sanders now has a whopping 27-point lead over Mrs. Clinton in New Hampshire. He's now beating her 60% to 33%. What do these numbers mean? Let's talk about it with Brian Joyce, radio host of The Brian Joyce Show. Lisa Booth is a GOP strategist. Brian,
hi,
are you surprised by the span in the numbers between them?
I'm a little bit surprised by the span, yes. I'm not surprised because it is in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders was virtually unknown outside of Vermont previous to entering this race. So I don't think it's surprising that he's leading in New Hampshire. I am a little bit surprised that it's such a big lead. I would not exactly get too excited about this just yet. I would not crown Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee because the reality is Hillary Clinton is still crushing him in South Carolina, states like Florida, pretty much every state outside of New Hampshire, and she's still up, I think, in 4 polls in Iowa. So it's not the end of Hillary's campaign yet, but these numbers in New Hampshire, they're pretty serious news for Hillary.
Lisa, we can take a look at a Fox poll from just a couple of weeks ago among likely Democratic voters in New Hampshire. At that point, Hillary Clinton was at 37%. To Sanders' 50%. It was a much closer race. Is there something that's happened in the last couple of weeks that has really made Bernie catch fire there? I mean, as Brian said, he was a known quantity in the neighboring state, has been for a long time.
Well, John, Hillary Clinton began the 2008 race the same as she did this election cycle, as the inevitable candidate. But now, once again, she's finding herself facing or standing on shaky ground. As you just mentioned, Bernie Sanders is surging in New Hampshire, he's surging in Iowa, and he's closing the gap nationally. And the problem, John, is what I think is happening is voters are really realizing what a deeply flawed candidate Hillary Clinton is. This is a candidate who is facing a federal investigation by the FBI, and due to recent reports, we know that they've expanded it to possibly include public corruption charges, not to mention that we now know that she had information that was beyond top secret. And she also faces a likability question, or likability problem. If you remember, during the 2008 debate, she was asked point blank, is she as likable enough?
Yeah, well, but Brian, I mean, obviously she could potentially lose New Hampshire and still go on to do very well in other states and, you know, in all likelihood, capture the nomination. She is still leading in the national numbers.
Well, I think the bigger issue that Lisa's getting to is that the reality is that Hillary Clinton was never necessarily an energizing figure to the far left base. She's been around for 25 years. Democrats like her. She does not energize the base the way Barack Obama did in 2008 and 2012. And I think what you see with Bernie Sanders is a guy who is virtually unknown outside of Vermont. He has a message that a lot of Democrats like, and so they're getting excited about him. I mean, Hillary is who she is. She's been who she is for 25 years. Again, I think, like Lisa says, you're just starting to see her trend a little bit downward, and you're starting to see Bernie Sanders trend upward.
Well, Lisa, you're here as a Republican strategist. It must excite Republicans to hear about the possibility of the Democratic nominee being somebody who at least one wing of the party isn't too thrilled about.
Well, and yeah, you're right. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. He wants the federal government to come in and dictate our everyday lives and limit opportunities for everyday Americans. But here's the thing. The biggest problem for Hillary Clinton, Brian is right in his assertion that she is up pretty significantly in South Carolina. And also, if you look at the SEC primary on March 1st, she looks well poised there. But the big problem for Hillary Clinton is this is not what Democrats want. The DNC chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, has been accused of rigging the debate schedule, rigging the system to help anoint Hillary Clinton as the queen, as the inevitable candidate. So they don't want a primary on the left, and that's what they found. And we've seen Hillary Clinton go further to the left to try to match Bernie Sanders, match a socialist, not be able to differentiate between Democrats and socialists, and openly support and embrace Obamacare and President Obama, who has resulted in the historic losses for Democrats in both the 2010 and 2014 election cycles.
All right. We'll be watching it all the way through. Looks like she's in some trouble there in New Hampshire at least. Lisa Booth, Brian Joyce, thank you both.
Thank you.